Yeah, guy. And I say that with a certain amount of conviction and vigor, David, because holy mackerel, the run of swell that we had here in California, basically along the entire Pacific coast, was amazing. It was noteworthy. Some might consider it historic. I think that's not being too hyperbolic. And man, there's a lot of content out there on the internet to soak in. And it was an incredible run. I'm surfed out. I'm sure you're surfed out. Frankly, on I think it was January 1st. Yeah, not yesterday, the day before. I was like, I guess I should go surfing, like I was slow to get in my car. I drove down there. It wasn't like it had been the prior 3 or 4 days, and then yesterday I went down to go surfing and I was like, nah, I'm going to get on the bike. And I just got on the bike and did my exercise a different way. I was just kind of surfed out, man, surfed out and feeling good.
And there's more on the way. I mean, later
Oh,
this week, it's going to be pumping.
no, yeah, I'm excited about what's happening in the El Nino fueled winter. There were some naysayers. I saw a few people like a month ago going, "What El Nino? More like La Nina." And that's, um, look, that's just a slight bit of ignorance because you got to understand that we can have El Ninos, and it doesn't necessarily always mean wave propagation or massive swells. A lot of times the El Ninos, they fuel the atmosphere in ways that don't provide low pressures over the ocean. They might provide low pressures over other parts, but this is definitely an El Nino. There's no doubt about it. Scientifically, of course, speaking. Now, those of us surfers that look at it and go, "Well, the waves are big. It's an El Nino." That's sort of a sophomoric way to take it in.
Did you score any historic in your own mind or memorable waves?
Yeah, I had one session in particular that was really good where I just was kind of all the elements came together as far as my own personal health and how I was feeling on the board. And it was an afternoon session. I surfed a lot in the mornings, and I generally surf better in the afternoons. And this one particular session, I decided to get rid of my booties. So I got rid of my booties. I put on my Colby Plus wetsuit, which keeps my feet warmer than my other suits, and I waxed up. And it was the first time I'd put my feet in the wax, so to speak. And it was an afternoon session, as I mentioned, and the waves were pumping, and I was in the good rotation. And man, I just felt springy and like a 30-year-old again, and everything came together. But I did have plenty and plenty, like incredible sessions. I'll tell you though, that the big success for me was, am I going to make it out? Like where I surf, there's moments where you can not make it out. And it's not because you're not strong or you don't know the ocean. It's just because if you time it wrong and the current's pulling and you don't get past the first level, you're done and you got to do the walk of shame and go back and try again. And when I've had a lot of dawn, I've had a lot of dark. And so there's tons of anxiety for me. I'm going, oh my God, it's dark. I'm older now. Is anyone going to even see me? So it's kind of stupid. Like this is a big ego vanity thing because on one hand, I don't want anyone to see me do the walk of shame. And on the other hand, I want to make sure people see me if I'm in trouble. But it's all up in my head. I have no problem getting out. I know how to do it. I've done it for 35, 40 years. So, but I do have that anxiety that exists. And a lot of it is because it's dark. And I'm like, man, the buoys are saying this, and the buoys are like pretty massive.
Yeah.
And, but it was great, because once you get out past the first level, everything's fine. And it was huge and big. And the crowds weren't too bad where I was because it's difficult sometimes to get out,
Yeah.
especially on the biggest moments of the biggest swells that we had.
Well, from the imagery that I've seen, it seems like San Diego, which is for new listeners to the show, is where Scott is located. It seemed like San Diego might have been the best kind of county in California. And at a couple of the spots, I saw imagery produced that I had never seen out of those spots before. Because I've seen it maybe that big, but I've never seen it that perfect. Like it looked flawless. I'm thinking of Skip McCullough's wave on Instagram. I'm thinking of Tosh Tudor's barrel that was published on a number of different spots. I mean, that was big and perfect.
Yeah. I don't want to jump the gun on our must see moments or anything like that, but there was a lot of west in it, which is great for San Diego. We're sort of in the Southern California bight, so some of the more northerly swells that we often get downgraded a little bit and a little bit filtered. And so the west swell really fills into San Diego well. There was, I mean, it might have been as big as it gets in San Diego. I don't, like I said earlier, I don't think that's hyperbole. I know I look back and I was thinking about it today. I was like, I remember I think it was the El Nino of '83. It was like this, but it also had tons of wind on it. So in the afternoon, not only did you have these massive swells sweeping through the coast, but you had onshore wind, like, so it was only glassy and offshore in the morning, and there was plenty of wind. And that just made it seem a little bit more ominous. We had really light winds. It was good all day long as far as surfing conditions. And so that might make me have that sort of old man thing where, oh, you should have been here in '83, which I think is bullshit. It was huge, massive. And, La Jolla Cove was breaking, of course, and there were some intense big wave sessions that went down at all the big wave spots. Some of the standouts here, Los Angeles lifeguard Dylan Jones, who's living down here for about 20 years now, lives in Cardiff, has a beautiful family here. He was a standout at some of those deep water locations here in San Diego. David Saholdnik, his brother Nick Saholdnik, lifeguard Miles, who I don't know his last name, Ryan Birch. Ryan Birch had some insane waves of blacks. You mentioned Tosh Tudor, and you mentioned La Jolla's Skip McCullough, who I think, based on what I've seen, may have won the swell as far as tapping into all of these central San Diego reefs and knowing the zones and knowing when to be there and then capturing imagery of it. And so I think tip of the cap to Skip. But it was one of these swell events, David, where you got great waves. I got great waves. Now, they're not relative to Skip McCullough's waves. No, I mean, but everybody is satiated. Everyone is feeling good about themselves. They're surfed out. I know there's a local kid here named Tommy Granger, and he was out with Sierra Kerr at Swami's on one of the first or second days of the swell. That evening, the super low tide, that inside section at Swami's turns into a legitimate barrel. And Tommy and Sierra Kerr were getting good waves. Where I surf, Ollie Norris, my friend Mario, a young Ripper kid, Harry Gardner, JD and Matty Lewis, local brothers, Cody and Dan, and a younger surfer I'll mention named Van, who I saw get a sick drainer. One of the ones that not as big as a wave as what's capable of breaking out there, but it came underneath and set up on the reef and just spun. And we were all in the channel watching it. Those of us that were paddling out after the set, and man, did he get a good one. And he was like, I told him, I go, dude, you're going to be chasing that wave for 30 years. Like, those don't come along very often. But it was quite a swell, westerly directed, very long swell lines, and it almost had like a southerly component. It was so west. I saw big lefts coming in at beach breaks that were, nobody was going to get on it. But like I said, that west direction made it have a sort of almost a southy vibe to it. And yeah, down here in San Diego, it was all time.
Totally. And I mean, look, we're apprehensive to say this was the best or the biggest ever. But if you have to go back to 1983 to think of anything that rivaled it, I think that says it all,
Yeah. Well, and there's there's the 98, I want to say 97, 98, something like that El Nino. But again, yeah, whatever. We're nitpicking, you know what I mean?
And there weren't as many photographers and there weren't as many good surfers back then. So now it's just your feeds are proliferated with what happened in real time almost. And one thing that was happening in real time, which I appreciated, was you calling the Mavericks tow day last time we recorded this. You had that Surfline cam pulled up and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is what's happening right now. Somebody just got a sick one. Turns out Jojo Roper, San Diego local, was there in the water that day. You didn't identify him, but he was out there. Kai Lenny was out there, as it turns out. Kai Lenny yesterday just published a YouTube video of that exact session. He
That's
was
my
in,
must-see moment. You've mentioned both of my must-see moments, by the way, presented by Trees Wax.
oh
Uh,
yeah.
the Kai Lenny Mavericks and Jaws in the same 24 hours on his YouTube channel. You've got to check that out because it's it's got him basically, he's bringing a friend out that had never been to Mavericks. You saw this, right, David?
Yeah.
And he's kind of doing a sincere like dialogue with him, like, hey man, here's what you need to look out for. Like, watch out for this rock, mushroom rock, this, do this here, blah, 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 watch out. You know, he's basically giving the do's and don'ts. And this is while they're riding out on the ski and he's leaning back and talking to his buddy. And so you got this real sense that he was talking to you, like you were on the back of the ski going, oh shit, man, here we go. And it's massive. And so anyway, that's my must-see. One of my must-see moments is that Jaws and Mavericks in the same 24 hours on the Kai Lenny YouTube channel.
The point of view aspect is just so cool. And we relied on people to give us insights into what was happening in the surf world before, but it was, I feel like when I was growing up, it was a writer who is then translating for the surfer or something like that, or the photographer who's trying to give you a perspective. But to have Kai Lenny himself as the filmmaker and the storyteller, no intermediary, publishing it from his point of view, which by the way, half the time is on the ski. So he's skiing and you're getting that point of view. And then half the time he's on the surfboard on the wave itself, giving you that point of view. It's unbeatable. It's incredible. It's incredibly insightful. Like you're saying, the little thing, the lineup markers, where the rocks are at, stuff like that, that you just would never get anywhere else.
Yeah, and man, we've had so much great content, and so it's hard to kind of pick which must-see moment, but that's definitely mine. And you mentioned JoJo Roper and Jamie Mitchell, and they're an interesting tow team. You know, you said, look, Kai Lenny, he surfed Mavs and Jaws in the same day. It's rare that JoJo and Jamie don't do the daily double where they're at Mavs and the next day they're at Totos. And they did that on this swell. And I can't really think of another team here along the Pacific coast that taps into both Mavericks and then Totos quite as often, or even if there is another team that does it quite as often or does it at all as JoJo and Jamie. So tip of the cap to those guys because they tapped into, like I said, both of those big wave spots.
Well, in that space, big wave surfing space, there are tons of chargers whose names I don't even know, because they don't have the publicity or self promotion that those guys do. And then I'm not surfing those waves, so I'm just not in those lineups to see any of that. But Jamie and JoJo have the financial wherewithal from the surf industry, I guess, to where they can be in two spots in 2 days, essentially, and chasing it. Those other guys are probably dedicated to one spot, and then they've got to get to work the next day.
Yeah, and let me say this too about Mavericks specifically. And you're right, these guys, both those guys and a few other guys have the resources to pull it off. Others are working class, Merle Haggard types, like working man blues, you know what I'm saying? Mavericks specifically, even as we see what Kai showed us, it's such an intense, gargantuan, Herculean wave that unless you're actually out there, and I would urge everyone, I don't know if they have those tours out there anymore. I don't see that big helicat boat out there anymore. But if you get a chance to actually go out there and watch those guys surf on the back of a ski or a boat or whatever, when it's massive, it just, the stuff we see in the videos, as great as it is, it's not like being right there in person. And I think that's the case probably with any adventure, it's just never the same. If you're at Half Dome, you're at Half Dome. Like it's
Yeah.
not, you're just like blown away. And pictures of Half Dome are beautiful. But when you see these little specks climbing up it, you're just like, oh my God. And that's sort of the case here, if you get a chance, go out there and just watch how mind bending it is. It's a next level experience.
What about, it seems that there's a dedicated crew going left now. And
Yeah.
I know guys have gone left in the past. I mean, Chris Malloy had a cover there, way back when. Um, but like Luca Padua, who trains with Laird Hamilton, I've seen him dedicated to that left. Nick Von Rupp, I feel like I've seen out there sitting on the left, which the cameras are all positioned in the channel. So the angle that you see is from that angle, looking kind of through the cavernous back door into the left. And it just looks that much more harrowing.
Yeah, it's funny. You know, first of all, I've never ridden a wave there and I never will, so I can't really speak to it. But what we see suggests that perhaps it's a little safer going left. Like if you actually make it to the corner, it's a shorter wave. It's got a crazy step at the very beginning. It's kind of ledgy, but it almost feels like once you get to the corner, there's like deep water out there. But again, I can't speak to these guys going left. And it's funny because we only see the right. I feel like I can't speak about the left because
I
for whatever
all I
reason, because I visually can see the right a lot for the last
Yeah.
5 years.
I was thinking John Mel, Pete Mel's son,
Yeah,
last year got a couple of those lefts too. I'm wondering if it's if there's if you go on that left and then the following wave is the one that Pete Mel got two
yeah,
years ago,
yeah,
where it's much deeper, then you're screwed. You have no, access back out.
yeah. Could be.
Well,
Well, by the way, holy mackerel, that guy just he's on another level out there. I
yeah,
mean, hey, he's your new WSL CEO.
that's what you hope. We'll see if that comes to fruition. Um, well, we probably have more to discuss on that swell, but I wanted to point out something real quickly. Just because it's come across the transom in the last 48 hours, but Lane Davy, friend of the show, Lane Davy, is in a bad way. You mentioned Lane Davy a little over a year ago. It was right kind of going into the winter season, 2022, changing into 2023, about how she's just a pioneer at Pipeline who doesn't quite get acknowledged whenever you talk about female pioneers at Pipeline. And so then she reached out to us or me shortly thereafter, and then I interviewed her for Surf Splendor in December of last year. Well, it turns out Sean Davy took her husband, Sean Davy, photographer, took to Instagram about 48 hours ago and announced that she has stage 4 cancer,
Oh,
colon ovarian cancer. Did you see this post?
no, but that's next level bad news.
Yeah,
Stage
that's
four.
why I want to draw attention to it. So he basically, I'll just read from what he said because it sums it all up. He said, "My wife, Lane, is in the fight of her life against stage 4 ovarian cancer associated with a 6 centimeter mass that is blocking her intestine, causing a lot of pain and making it hard for her to even eat. The 6 months that it took for us to get a diagnosis, during the 6 months that it took for us to get a diagnosis, the cancer spread to her liver and her lungs. So at this point, the only option for treatment is chemotherapy, which will start on December 26th. So I guess this was a little bit longer, a week ago, I guess now. But since it's unlikely to cure the cancer, Lane is researching cutting edge facilities such as City of Hope in Arizona, the Burns Clinic in Texas, and the Turtle Band Clinic in Nevada, who specialize in advanced cancers. Costs of treatment at some of these centers can run up to as much as $140,000. We're also looking for a reasonably priced rental in Kahuku so that Lane's mom can come and help out, and then free up more time for me to work, especially since Lane isn't working at this time." He went on to give some more details about it, but then closed out by saying, "To be honest, I know Lane feels let down because she's given up most of the material gain in life to serve as a teacher and a community activist for the last 20 years. And in her time of need, neither the educational system nor the healthcare system is there for her currently." So the surf industry seems to refuse to acknowledge or recognize her contributions. So we're sincerely asking for your prayers and your support. He set up a GoFundMe and said any amount, big or small, not only funds not only funds Lane's chances at life, but fuels her fight to live because it shows her that people care and appreciate her support. So if you have any thoughts, financial donations, prayers, comments, I'd encourage you to go ahead and leave those for Sean and Lane on their Instagrams and on that GoFundMe page. She stated it explicitly in my podcast with her, but also Sean refers to there. The appreciation is what she's the acknowledgement of kind of her contributions to the surf space mean a lot to her. And so if you can express that in any way, I think that would be meaningful.
Yeah, I just went onto the GoFundMe page to offer some help, and this is just horrible, man. Like,
But
I don't
yeah,
know. There's a bunch of shit I could say that might make me sound like a fool. I think the best thing to say is I'm just so sorry, and I hope that she gets better. And I'm going to give some money because I'm a big fan of Lane's, and I'm a big fan of Sean Davies. I mean, he's a sweet guy, and she's a sweet gal, and I'm going to do what I can to give some money. And whew, man, just
brutal.
yeah.
But that brings us to Pipeline. Lane brings us to Pipeline.
Yeah.
The backdoor shootout, notoriously the worst, the most difficult information to find on the internet is always related to the backdoor shootout.
Not this
But
year.
it is. I don't even know what the dates are that it's running. I mean,
It starts tomorrow.
oh,
It's
does
going to
it?
run
Okay,
tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday, 3 days in a row. It's going
perfect.
to be pumping. You can watch it on surfline.com's YouTube or dahui.com's YouTube channel, two different YouTube channels. It's going to be really good. I've actually been watching some pipeline just randomly between sessions, and there's some crazy sand on the reef right now. There's these crazy guys are getting these crazy below sea level double ups at backdoor, but not on the reef. You can tell there's sand on it. There's that brown mix in it. And it's so below sea level that it's next. Now this swell that's coming in is going to blow all that sand away anyway. So it's going to be really good. I mean, it's going to be. I mean, I don't want to overhype it, but I think it's going to be next level backdoor shootout.
Well, the backdoor, they don't run unless it's pumping. You know what I mean? Like it's got to be 10 out of 10 condition, or actually 12 out of 12, I think, by their standards, 12 out of 10. But they obviously there's a team event. Snapped, the film series Snapped has won the last 2 years in a row. They just announced their team. I don't know if you remember this, but last year they never announced an actual winner of the event. Do you remember that?
I couldn't tell you who's ever won that event ever.
Okay.
Now that's not on them. That's just on me. Maybe not. I'm more
Well,
engaged in actually the competition, like the surfing that's taking place. It's almost like a expression session more than a competition.
yeah, totally. And I think it was cool last year that they didn't pick a winner. And again, from what I remember, that's the way that it ended. But like I said, there's no information on their website about previous winners or any of that. So it's usually hard to track down that information unless you're watching it live, anyways. Um, but the team that won the last 2 years is the Snapped team. And so their team this year is Joshua and Seth Moniz, the brothers, Benji Brand, who is always a dark horse in this event. Clay Marzo is on the team this year, and then Mason Ho as well. So that team's looking super strong. A New Earth project also announced their team, and check this out. Kelly Slater, Carissa Moore, Kai Lenny, Koa Smith, and Matahi Drole.
Wow. Well, a New Earth project and Snapped Five, those guys. It's cool. I'm stoked on Claymores. I'm
Me
stoked on
too.
watching Claymores.
Me too.
You know what I mean? Like that psychs me. But that's cool. New Earth project. Say their name their team. I just was donating to Lane Davies thing, but it's Kelly and who else?
Kai Lenny, Carissa Moore, Koa Smith, Matahi Drole.
That's sick.
That's a
I love.
banger of a team, dude.
I think the Snaps team is insane.
I know it is. Yeah, that's why
They
they
have,
brought it up.
who's the guy they have on the Snap team that's just, I was reading, is it like some guy named Camel or something?
Salmon Boy.
That's it, Salmon Boy. Who's Sam? Fill me in on Salmon Boy because I saw some funny stuff like on Instagram, like I'm here for the salmon.
Salmon Boy is a Hollywood actor. His name's Simon Rex. I
Oh,
think he came from the MTV universe back when MTV was like really big and had a bunch of reality shows like The Real World and stuff like that, like late 90s, early mid 2000s. So I think he kind of came through that scene and became like a, celebrity. But he's an actor and he was in a
but he's a
ex
Hawaiian, right? He's a
no,
local.
no,
Oh
no,
no.
no. He's
Oh,
from Southern California.
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, he and Logan Doolian are friends. Logan Doolian, who is the director, filmmaker for the Snapped series. So
Mhm.
Logan constantly incorporates Simon into skits and stuff in those
Oh,
videos
that's cool.
and is kind of an uh honoree team member who never ends up surfing in the event, but they just kind of use
Oh,
as a punchline for jokes. But Simon Rex, by the way, just total side note for anybody who's interested in films, he was in an excellent film last year called Red Rocket. Uh,
really?
yeah, which you can find. I watched it on Showtime,
What's that
streaming on
about?
Showtime. But Red Rocket, produced by A24, very reputable independent film production company. So that was really good. So he's a really good actor.
Hmm. I've been watching Lessons in Chemistry.
Yeah, I haven't
Brie
seen it yet, but I
Larson.
heard it's really good.
It's pretty interesting for
Is it?
sure. It's yeah. I'm a big I'm a fan of Brie Larson's.
Yeah, me too.
Okay,
Um,
so the backdoor shootout. Look, it's going to be pumping. I mean, tomorrow you could be geeking out on the backdoor shootout after your morning session.
I will be. I'm really excited actually to watch that. So I'm glad that you knew when it was actually going to be running. Um,
By the way, can I bring something up that we spoke about a couple weeks ago? But so you and I think it was you more than me, brought up the Jason Breen, who ran into a whale off of the Sydney beaches while he was wing foiling. He ran into a friggin' humpback whale. Was it you? Did you remember talking about this?
I did
Okay.
not. This is news to me.
So while wing foiling off of these Sydney beaches, Jason Breen, who's a surfer and a foiler just like you and I, um, he ran into a whale and he happened to have his GoPro going while it happened. And it was kind of a big to do a couple of weeks ago. Like it made it on like national news because, because he had the footage mostly, right? And randomly, there was a guy on a cliff just shooting, going, look at this cool wing foiler, just some touristy guy or whatever. And he caught it too. So there's two angles of it, right? So a couple of weeks go by, he goes through the whole media shebang, like does Japanese, does global media about this because it's everybody's picking it up. And but what's cool is that because now like it's been 3 weeks or something, he's really been able to sit back and kind of reflect on it. And so he does an in-depth telling of this encounter and the honesty and the vulnerability with which he recounts this story and his assessment of his emotions now that the encounter has taken place and he's kind of sitting and he's had a chance to marinate in it a little bit. So I listened to this on this foil podcast that I listened to. The podcast is by a surfer and a foiler. His name is Eric Antonson, and his podcast is called The Progression Project, and it's episode 124. Anyway, I urge you guys to listen to Jason Breen's telling of this story. It's pretty fascinating. By the way, it starts at 26 minutes into the podcast. So if you don't want to hear the foil BS, you can go to I'm in it for I love the foil BS. I'm geeking out on the foil BS. But if you just want to hear Jason tell the story, it starts at 26 minutes in. But like I said, even if you're not into foiling, this is just an incredible story. I mean, the guy got taken down by a friggin' humpback whale and wasn't coming up. And he talks about all sorts of stuff. He's done a bunch of research on basically like how long do you think it is when you and I get worked by a wave, a big wave here in California? How long do you think we're underwater for on
Six
average?
6 seconds, maybe.
That's probably 2 seconds too long. He's saying it's 4 seconds is how long we're underwater. And you know, like about 2 seconds in, I'm panicking. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So you can imagine being on the backside of a whale. By the way, whales come up like this vertically. This one came up vertically, and they spin to kind of get their nozzle out of the water, or their what's the word I'm looking for? Their
Gills?
blowhole,
Blow.
blowhole out of the water. And so he ran into this thing as it was breaching, and it took him down, tied up his wing in the friggin', the whale's fin. And anyway, I'll let Jason.
How long was he down for?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, getting back to the time. He was down for 15 seconds. And at that point, he's like, I'm about, at like 10 seconds in, he's like, I'm about to just, I know. His eyes are open. He's on the bed. He's stuck to this whale and it's going down. And he's like, I'm about to take my breath, like a breath of water. Like that's when you drown. Like you take that first gulp of oxygen that your body tells you to take, which is water. That's the one that takes you down and you're drowned. And it's just a harrowing story. Like I said, this has nothing to do with foiling, but everything to do with how powerful Mother Nature is and the fact that we're out there and sometimes we take it for granted. And just a random 1 in a billion chance that he runs into a whale and it's on film.
So the problem was that his kite was attached to him and tangled in the whale, right? And it was dragging him down.
Well, first of all, let me go foil geek on you and tell you it's not a kite, it's a wing. Okay.
I know.
It's a wing. And normally Jason has that attached to his waist, but because he ran in to grab his GoPro and attach and put it on his thing, he just in some haste, he put it and attached it to his wrist. And so if it was on his waist, he definitely would have been dead. And so all these little happenstance things, like kind of like God shots occurred. And you know, it's a great story. I'll leave it there and let Jason does a better job of telling it than me. But he's got some, like I said, the cool thing is his ability to, like I said, marinate in, 3 or 4 weeks after the fact and really kind of assess his emotions about it. I think the first couple of days afterwards, it was like, go, 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 media, media, media. And Eric on his podcast, The Progression Project, got him sort of at a time when he was able to reflect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating. What a story.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. I think you'll enjoy listening to it. Again, 26 minutes in, you can fast forward.
Gotcha. Top level pros kicking out of lifelong partnerships this week. All three Godowskis brothers are off vans. Did you see that?
I didn't see that. No, that's too bad. That sucks.
It's they've each taken to Instagram to announce the departing or their parting of ways, I should say.
How does that phone call must be fucking, excuse my French, but that must be tough, man.
Well,
when you get a call from the team guy and he's like, hey, we need to talk. And you're like, we don't talk. That's what it is.
Well, so the good news is it's indicative of a much larger symptom that's happening in the surf industry. So I don't think that the Godowskis brothers should take it personally.
No, they're perfect ambassadors for any brand. Like you couldn't do better. They're incredible. They're great on social. They're great. They're out there. They're sincere about their stoke and their love of surfing and everything. So anyway, I apologize for interrupting, but those guys are A-list ambassadors.
And it's very public, the struggles that Vans and VF Corp have been in, right? So, there isn't any one person to blame here, and there doesn't seem to be any animus either. Like they were very, very glowing in their departure post, praising the company itself, but also individuals within the company that make that company so great. So I think that was a very classy parting, but hard to see, but indicative of kind of a shakeup that we're seeing across the board. Well, I have a clip here from Kalia Moniz, in her post, she's been with Roxy for I think she said 20 years. And did you happen to watch her Instagram post?
I've read a little bit about it. She doesn't seem quite as uh happy about it. She's got a little bit more vinegar.
Well, so it's about a 5 minute long post. I'm only going to play the last 2 minutes of it for you. I actually think, and again, not to jump to the end of the show, but she is kind of my Duke, I think, of the week, because she spends the first 3 minutes praising Roxy and specifically Lisa Anderson for the template that Lisa built with Roxy for treatment of women and showcasing their surfing and designing product that suits them and all this kind of stuff. Um, and so I just thought she did a very classy job in a similar way that the Godowskis brothers did. But then she spends the last 2 minutes uh, explaining very candidly the shift in what's happening in corporate culture and the corporate takeover of surfing. And that's why she's my Duke in this scenario, is because it takes a very clear communicator to do it in a way that isn't slinging mud and to, let's be honest, she wants to be loyal to her followers more than anybody else, and she's peeling back the curtain a little bit for the followers and her direct fans for what's happening in the world right now of surfing. So this last 2 minutes of her Instagram post is what I'm going to play for you. Um, and yeah, we'll let it run.
I have to get comfortable for this one. After COVID, I signed the best contract that I've ever landed in my athletic career. It took a lot for my team and I to get here, and this contract was supposed to last another year. Unfortunately, after the buyout of Roxy, the contract was terminated. And then they offered me a 90% pay cut to resign. After years of fighting for fair pay and equality, there's just no way I was signing that deal, especially knowing that I wasn't the only athlete that this was happening to. I'm not about to be strong-armed by some corporation who not only knows nothing about the sport, but doesn't give a shit about it. If you're wondering why I'm leaving, it's not because I don't love what I do. I'm a surfer. I'm as real as it gets, and no one can ever take that away from me. I'm leaving because if I sign this deal, I'd be setting the industry standards for the girls who look like me and surf like me, and I simply want nothing to do with that. The surf industry has been consolidated by two large corporations who don't care that there's been a dismantling of the monetary value of a whole generation of surfing happening right now. And I refuse to play part of this because it looks pretty on your spreadsheet. My sincere hope is that I can inspire some of the next generation to maybe carve out a new path of what it looks like traditionally to be sponsored, to be independent. And I know that I can't do that by sitting here and subjecting myself to their value. So with that said, with all due respect, I'm out.
What are your thoughts?
I I I'm I thought that was really well done. I get where she's coming from, and I can see why she's your Duke. And um, that it's it's weird. It's like I want to pull the personal out of it and look at it from a business standpoint, and a lot of times, and I fall victim to this all the time. Business decisions are made and we take them personally.
Hmm.
And we think, oh, they don't like us. And it's not that at all. It's business. Like, it's business. Like, that's what this is. Doesn't mean we still get to go surfing, you know? But I do like what she's, like, it's funny when my whole thing is I've been doing that rant that she just did there for like since 1986 when Quicksilver went public. You know what I mean? Like that's an old rant. Like I get it. I'm with her. I'm with you, girl. Totally with you. You know? So I don't know. I love her sincerity. I think it's great. I'm stoked she's sticking by her guns. She's got values. She's like, no, you know what? I'm worth more than that. You know what I mean? But I think she's priceless, is my point. Like I don't think there's any amount. No, there's no amount of money that can be put on the fact that she gets to go paddle out with her family, her you know, her Ohana, and she's that family's royalty, you know, and there's no amount of money. And so, you know,
I think she summed it up. She summed it up perfectly. I don't even think it sucks. I think you're right. The corporation has a fiscal responsibility, and they said, we'll give you 10% of what the non-corporate or the previous whatever smaller version of us was giving you. It made sense for them for a period of time to pay you what they were paying you, but it no longer makes sense for us in this new world order. This no longer makes sense for us. So I'll tell you what, we'll give you 10%. We're going to pillage surf culture. We're going to use your image and we'll give you 10%. If it's not worth it, don't take it. No hard feelings. And she thankfully is smart enough and savvy enough to go, it's definitely not worth it. I don't want your 10%. And you can't buy, like you said, what I'm a part of is priceless. And so you can't buy it. I'd be willing to share it with you if it all made sense for all of us. But it's at 10%, it's laughable. So no, I'm going to go this way. And I feel like she expressed that and articulated it enough without, again, slinging mud or calling names or anything like that. It was just matter of fact. It was the corporate makes a decision that's not personal. I'm making a decision and publishing this video, and it's not personal. It's just is what it is.
You know what I really liked about what she said was she goes, look, I'm not gonna, if I sign this deal, I'm setting the benchmark for all of the young women surfers behind me. You know, I'm not going to be responsible for that, because she's right. Like whoever inks the deal kind of sets the litmus, sets the number, you know, and good for her. You know, I think that's one of the many things in her soliloquy that was of real value, that she's like, you know what, sign this and everyone's going to get screwed.
She said, I want to inspire the next generation to be independent. And I love the idea of independence, I think, is this kind of new world order that things are going in is better for surfing. It creates more diversity, a more dynamic surfing world through this model. Like, it doesn't make any sense for a surfer to be, quote, partnered with a brand indefinitely for decades on end. You know, like that just doesn't make sense anymore. There's certain versions of it that may, like, if your identity and ideology so closely aligns with the brand that you are one and the same, then maybe it makes sense. And if you have a vested interest in that brand and product, like Jordan with Nike, then that makes sense. But there's Kalia, there's no, like you said, there's no amount that Roxy can pay Kalia at this point, unless she's has vested shares in the company and is, you know, for it to make actual sense. She could make more money going the route that Alana Blanchard has gone, you know, there's just more financial opportunity. So anyways, my point is, through independence, I think we have a better version of the surf world than we would have had with 5 monolith brands and 3 monolith magazines and everything running through those filters.
Yeah, you're reiterating a great point that you've been making for a long time, and it's also a super scary space for these independents, you know. Can she, and I think she can, she's incredibly well spoken, and You know, I think that if that's what she wants to do, if she wants to um, be a voice for authentic surfing, especially in Hawaii, um, there are brands that will run to her and go, "Hey, you know what? Let's do this, let's do that," and she can work with all of them, and that's wonderful. But it's
Well,
I don't know.
she
There's only so many of those people, though. I know you and I have kind of gone back and forth on this. Like, how many JOBs are there? You know, before we get lost. Like it's almost like right now is super exciting from you and I, our standpoint, because we get to sit back and watch it unfold, and we're kind of seeing like, okay, JOB is staking out this area here on YouTube, and Mason's trying to stake out this area, and Nathan Florence is staking out this area. But you can't stake out the same areas. You got to kind of make your own area. You know what I mean? You got to make your own
I
path.
disagree.
Okay,
I think
fill me in.
I think that
Fill me in.
there's well, I would have agreed with you, except the tolerance for people to follow celebrity is way higher than I ever would have imagined it would be. You know, like my grandparents, they had 5 celebrities that they knew. They knew Frank Sinatra, they knew Dolly Parton, they knew Elvis Presley, and like 2 others. And now there's just so many YouTubers that make more money than like hundreds of millions of dollars, you know, and influencers on Instagram that do it and all that. So the good news for Kalia is she's married to a celebrity. I think he's a celebrity photographer. She has representation from one of the top agencies. She has 750,000 Instagram followers. Like she will absolutely find
She's got a
support.
great family, which is probably the most important part of all of that.
Great family and family legacy that actually translates towards interest from the public. The funny thing was, her very next post from that one that I just shared with you was her posing on a beach, couple of images, like kind of model style shots. And her caption just says, "Call me." Actually, call. And then she tagged her manager instead. So she's
You know what I'm
available.
missing here too is I'm missing a lot. I'm missing a lot between my ears, David. But what I'm really missing, in addition to that, is I start to realize that I'm thinking of, okay, because Jamie just got 1 million viewers. Like he's celebrating that he just got 1 million subscribers on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
What's it called?
On YouTube, yeah.
Yeah, on YouTube. 1 million. And I'm saying to myself, oh shit, that's 1 million people that can't be following Ms. Moniz. But that's not true. You same guys, me and you can follow her. We can follow Mason. We can all get to 1 million. Now, what's really trippy about this, and I don't know anything about it, but I know you do, is Google can just change the algorithm. Like if you get enough people that have 1 million subscribers, they're gonna be like, okay, well, guess what? Now the algorithm is 3 million subscribers, and we'll pay you the same amount that we were paying you for having 1 million subscribers. Like we have no leverage as content creators.
Well, look, she's diversified enough, or in theory, a content creator is diversified enough across different platforms. The other detail there is the Google actually is incentivized for her to get to 1 million from the 750,000 that they're at now, because that keeps viewers on their platform. So all the advertising dollars that used to be allocated towards television are now allocated towards YouTube. So they really want Kalia to thrive on their platform. They don't really have an incentive to shift the platform from under her and try to undermine her.
Well, all I'm saying is if there are enough content creators so that YouTube's the place, and there's just a never-ending stream of guitar shit that I watch and surf videos that I watch and live content, all the stuff that I'm into, all the stuff that you're into. There's enough of them so that they go, okay, we've got so much freaking content. Thank you all so much. Everyone comes to YouTube, but we're changing the algorithm. You're not going to get paid as much. You need now to get to 3 million subscribers. So get to it.
Yeah. And they will feed people through the system to try to get you to the 3 million because they'll sell more advertisers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I agree with you. They are probably doing that, but they're also
By
keeping
the way,
people on the site.
speaking of, tip of the cap to Kalia Moniz, good work. And speaking of vans, I was thinking remember we were talking about who's your CEO? And it
Mhm.
has to be a super salty guy that can friggin' charge 50-foot Mavericks or whatever, like somebody that is salty. Like everyone goes, that guy knows what he's talking about in the water, right?
Mm.
That's the first thing. And then of course we need, you need to know the contest space, and you need to know marketing, and you need to know this and that. But who would be your guy if it wasn't one of those guys? If it wasn't a salty surfer, if it was just a CEO type, just kind of the type that makes you cringe a little bit? Because the guy that came to mind for me was Doug Palladini, who took Vans and just, I mean, I don't know if Doug gets the credit he deserves. I don't know. I, in fact, don't know too much about it. I know I worked for Doug, and you could just tell he knew his stuff from sort of like a CEO guy. Like if he wasn't sort of fascinated by the surf space as a kid, he'd be like running Walmart or something. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like he's got CEO DNA,
Yeah.
and he knows the space. I mean, he worked for Vans, Vans Triple Crown for years and years and years and years. I believe, and I'm sure some others that are more in the know at Vans during that time could either correct me or agree with me. And I'd love to get that insight. I'd love to learn about that. But I believe that Doug drove some good things there at Vans, and I think he's smart enough to go, you know what? I'll be the CEO, but I need Peter Mel as my, whatever, chief
Yeah.
marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, another kind of tangential Vans topic, Harry Bryant. I don't know if you're following Stabs doing their Surfer of the Year popularity contest that they do. It's
Guess
basically,
what? I'm not following the popularity contest.
well, it's pretty insightful, I think, is kind of what it is. It's 10 days. They interview 50 people, uh, just people in the surf space, everybody from professional surfers to WSL commentators and filmmakers, photographers, to get their thoughts on who are your top 5 surfers this year, male, female, who's your top junior, what was your favorite edit this year, what's your favorite surf film this year. And they tabulate all the scores, and then at the end of the 10 days, they will reveal, obviously, who the winners are. I think they're on day 6 right now, but the list is fascinating, and you're not following, but I'll fill you in on who the current
Yes.
front runners are. There's a
Yeah.
runaway winner on the women's side, on the best female side. The men's a little bit closer, but
Hold on. Let
what's,
me guess. Can I guess?
yeah, you can guess. Yeah.
Are you ready for me to guess, or do you want to keep going?
Um, I'll give you a hint real quickly. In just the reason I brought it up and the reason why I said it was telling is how few CT surfers are on
Mm,
this list.
okay.
Uh, Among the top 15 on both the men and the women's side, there's only 6 CTs on the males on the CT that are on this list, and only 6 female surfers that are on the CT that are also on this list. So very few. But go ahead with your guesses.
First, let me say that when we ran the surfer poll, it was always CT people. It
Yeah.
was very, and if one of them snuck in, like if Dave Rostovich or somebody like that snuck in, believe me, the publishers at Surfer were like, hold on, like we can't have him in there. We
Yeah.
need whatever, an O'Neill guy or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, my guesses are, so you mentioned women, and that's when I interrupted you. I'm like, oh, I think I know who the woman is.
So there is a runaway
Yeah,
contender,
she's a
number 1 on the
runaway
women's side, who has double the amount of points of number 2.
for the woman.
Yeah.
It is the number 1 runaway woman a CT surfer.
Yes.
Okay, it's Carissa.
Nope.
Caitlin?
Caitlin Simmers.
You're kidding. Okay, that's fascinating. That falls into that's perfect. Okay, so the guy, can I guess okay, go ahead. So
The reason I feel like Caitlin Simmers is this runaway winner, she dropped an edit like a free surf edit called Bell Jar. This is something I've been saying on this podcast for 10 years now. Because I remember like the
Mhm.
epiphany that I had 10 years ago was around Sage Erickson.
Yeah.
And Sage Erickson, she fell off tour a couple of times, but then she'd get back on. And I just thought to myself, there's no female surfers who are really making a go at being free surfers, like shortboard female free surfers. We have this whole slew of dudes doing it, making a living off of it. What Sage Erickson really should do 10 years ago is focus on creating the best edit of the year or the best edits throughout the year that she puts on social media and just focus on that. She's incredibly good looking. She's incredibly charismatic. She's a great surfer. There's no sense in her being, the 10th surfer on the CT every year, year in and year out, and not get good waves, be relegated to surfing the crappy waves because they're going to run them in the good waves. She should just go get barreled somewhere and make edits. She'd be incredible at it, right? She never did. Point is, Caitlin Simmers put out an edit this year that was like jaw-dropping, surfing the box, getting
Yeah.
insane waves, doing airs. And I think that was a breakthrough moment where, yeah, we saw her coming up in the junior ranks and we had expectations for her on the CT. She actually kind of delivered on the CT, to be honest. So that probably can be pointed to as well. But as she finished top 5, but then having that kind of additional element of like the only female who did something like this, I think solidified her number 1 position in people's mind.
Well, that's cool. I'm stoked to do that. I'm stoked to hear that. Now, I wonder, you had me thinking, was that edit dropped on Stab's edit of the year? Or was there another distribution outlet, or Stab have some power here? Because the edit was dropped on Stab, that also plays into why she was elevated in everybody's minds. Because I saw the edit and you and I both raved about it. We were like, holy shit, she's going to rule the CT.
It was exclusive on Stab for a period of time, and then it was available on YouTube, I believe, through O'Neill.
Was it the one where like she kind of hangs out with Russell Birkey a little bit?
I don't remember. There was that too. I don't remember if that was the same one.
Okay, so I'm going to guess the men's. Okay,
yeah.
Is the men's a runaway like the women's?
No, the men's is very tight, and it's tied actually for first.
I think it's
and
Nathan
second.
Florence.
Correct. Nathan Florence is tied for the first position.
Yeah. Okay.
He's tied with Ethan Ewing.
Do me a favor. What are the top 4 or 5 women? Just rip off their names.
Caitlin Simmers, Caroline Marks, Carissa Moore, Stephanie Gilmore, Molly Picklum. And it turns out those are all CT surfers, but everybody on the list after that is not.
What about the men?
Nathan Florence, Ethan Ewing.
Okay.
They're tied for first.
Yeah.
Harry Bryant, third.
That's random for me, but go ahead.
That's why I mentioned that as the segue from Vans, because I was shocked to see him up there too. He's the number 1 pick for a lot of people this year. Felipe Toledo's 4th, Noah Dean is 5th.
Okay. Couple things. One thing I'm going to say, I'm going to sound as ignorant as I always do, but this is going to sound stupid as I formulate this in my head. But what's wrong with 40 or 50-year-old surfers being on this list? Like there's never, ever anyone over 35 years old. I would even say over 30 that's on this list. Well, so this is really a popularity contest for young people because they're at their prime, they're at their peak. But in my mind, like my favorite surfer, and I guess they're tapping into 25-year-olds that are answering these questions, right?
No, they've got a range of people across the board.
I guess I just go back to, I guess I'm just like, get off of my lawn, old dude.
I mean, if they asked you,
I'm thinking about Mickey Munoz, man. That guy's like, there's no, the best surfer is the one having the most fun.
No, if Stab Magazine, the question is, who is your top surfer of 2023? what would you say?
All right, that puts it into perspective.
Yeah.
I would say my top surfer of 2023, I guess, would be Nathan Florence. He's
Might
right.
be.
You're right.
Yeah, it might be Nathan Florence. And so
Yeah.
I think when people are picking Harry Bryant, which you feel like is out of left field, he got that wave at Pipe during the Pipe Masters that's fresh in everybody's mind, right? Best wave of the event. He also apparently
Oh,
just
I
dropped,
forgot about that. Okay, yeah, okay, yeah. That
and
was
he just dropped a film that also premiered on the North Shore that week. So if Stab's on the North Shore collecting these votes, that's probably fresh in everybody's mind. The film is not yet available for streaming, so I have not seen it, but apparently it's really good. And he is an incredible surfer. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
obviously, there's a lot of incredible surfers who just don't have the marketing powerhouse and video production crew following them around, showcasing their exploits, or they come to a pinnacle in their career where they invest in it and they have this breakthrough moment like Harry seems to be having right now.
He's
Because
got a real like underground, he's kind of got like a South Australia, like Joel Fitzgerald, Wayne Lynch kind of like he's becoming famous in spite of himself almost.
which I think is actually something. I think
Yeah,
that
I do
he
too. I
is,
agree.
I think that he is the antidote to I mean, Ethan Ewing, Ethan Ewing, who's just so polished and groomed and like came through the machinations of the surf industry. This flies in the face of it.
Yeah.
So I think people like that and appreciate it and want
What
it.
do you think about Felipe Toledo being in fourth, though? To me, that seems like a stretch. There's not, what about Mason Ho? What about Clay Marza? To me, there's a million guys I'd rather watch surf than Felipe Toledo.
Well, when you say who's the best surfer, who's your favorite,
2023. Okay, he's the world
who is
champion.
your favorite surfer of 2023? What ends up coming to mind is the people who are in your face the most. And Felipe, month in, month out, week in, week out, was either winning events or posting banger clips. And so he's just in your face all the time.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, he's a great surfer and he's our world champion and whatever. But at the end of the day, I don't want my kid surfing like Felipe Toledo. You know what I mean?
Well, the other interesting thing you said was where's the 50-year-olds on the list? There's
Yeah,
one notable 50-year-old who is
Kelly.
absent from the list.
Oh, Kelly's not on the list.
I haven't seen Kelly's name mentioned on one person's picks.
Well, that would be a cool thing for Stab to do for us old guys. I'd like who's the top between 40 and 60-year-old surfers.
Kelly's going to win that every year.
I guess so, but I mean, who knows? That's a stupid idea. See, I knew I'd sound like an idiot when I said that, but
Well,
it's funny because I think of Kai Lenny. I'm like, Kai Lenny's the best surfer. In my opinion, he's the greatest waterman, which is what's being a surfer is all about. Like there's this umbrella of waterman, and then underneath it, it's like shortboard surfer, longboarder, kite guy, foiler, downwind paddle, long distance Molokai. All of these, everything falls underneath this concept of waterman.
yeah.
And I think Kai Lenny's the guy.
Yeah.
I think he can do it all. And he does it all at a super, super high level. Like he's not, like it'll be interesting to see how he does tomorrow at the backdoor shootout.
Yeah, it will be.
I know that makes you vomit in your mouth a little bit. Did I say
No.
Kai Lenny is the greatest surfer? I
I've
said it before.
Yeah, you've been saying it for a long time, and I'm coming around to it. I've always agreed with your concept once you define it that way, but I undervalued his shortboard prowess or his pipe and backdoor prowess up until the last 3 years, let's say. But now I've seen him surf out there enough to where I'm like, he's legit.
I mean, here's the thing. He's doing these little, I don't know what you call them. I'm not an aerialist guy, but at 60-foot Mavericks, he's like doing, I don't know, are they pop shove-its or whatever?
They're not a pop shove it, but
it's friggin' nobody else is doing out there, man. It's friggin' crazy.
he's doing what's essentially an ollie.
Yeah.
He comes out of the bowl with a ton of speed, and there's no lip to hit, but he'll find a little ramp
Yeah.
chop basically, and
Yeah.
then he'll ollie off that, and he's going so fast and there's so much wind that kind of catches under the board that he catches air, and he does like a full legit, I mean, it's a 10-foot air
Yeah.
because he's going that fast, which is insane, and he lands it and rides out of it. But
And he does it at Jaws when he's just dropping down the wave face.
I know. Yeah, it's
I don't know.
hard to
Guys,
even it's hard to even I'm saying it in a manner that's almost like discounting it, but it's only because it's outside of the realm of my brain's possible,
yeah.
comprehension.
And what I'm saying is, let's see Nathan Florence do it. You know what I mean? Like, let's see these guys on the list go out and do that. And then the same day, grab a wing foil or grab a friggin' sailboard. The guy will go like get in the tube on the left at Jaws on a sailboard. Like, I think you're right. It's so far outside of the realm of the little vision, the little focus that we have on surfboard riding that it doesn't get the credit. I don't know. The guy's insane. Kai Lenny's freaking next level, like crazy. Like he can do anything better than anybody.
Well, the good news is for
Kai, or as good as, because he can go out the backdoor pipe and get barreled and get spit out on both of the right. He can do it at pipeline. He can do it back. Like he can do all the stuff all the other guys do. Now, look, he might not be as nuanced as Ethan Ewing or as, he might not know the subtleties of the reef the way Kelly can just, track down a wave during a heat. But I'm just saying, like, we all know the guy's insane. Like, yeah.
Yeah, he's the good news for Kai is he almost exists on a different realm than any of the things that you mentioned. And so he makes a living on a different realm. His sponsors are Red Bull, Tag Heuer, I don't know.
Audi, probably like Audi or something. He's got some premium sponsors, man.
Yeah, he does. That exist. They're non-endemic brands, is my point. And so he exists on his own terms. You know what I mean? And he can do all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So anyways, the stab thing, it's interesting just because I think it is an accurate peek on behind what the trends are, of these, certainly of the last year. The edit of the year was one that you called out last week as your favorite edit of the year, which is the Russell Bierkey Outer Edge of Leisure. That is a runaway winner for everybody. So you called that one. But yeah, they'll tabulate all that and it'll be available for us by our next recording.
Cool. Love it. Love the work that they do at Stab. I am a premium subscriber. I've re-upped for this year and I will continue to re-up. In fact, Mikey Ciamarella in one of the comments section did a little sort of a cheat code on what's coming up. Well, actually, they have that thing called cheat codes. And in January, coming up here, Mark Healy. And then I don't even know what this means, but Nas's MASH film. I don't know. Do you know what that is?
Noah Dean. It's his new film. Nas is Noah Dean.
Okay. And then Sierra Kerr's film is coming out on Stab in January. And then the start of Stab in the Dark. This is all according to Mikey Ciamarella. That's what we have to look for. Well,
look, I appreciate certainly those things, those big projects that they do, but I also like these year-end wrap-up things that they do because the year gets away from us. And I always, in fact, tell myself every January, I'm like, I need to make notes throughout the year when something does stand out so that at the end of the year, we can do like an awards show, you and I. And we'll be like, who left the best comment on a post or whatever it is, who had the best edit, who had the best wave, all that sort of thing. And I just don't actually follow through with the discipline required to actually do that, but they do. And I appreciate it. And my must-see moment presented by Trees Wax, the only petroleum-free surf wax, treeswax.com, is they put together the 23 most spectacular waves of 23. And so it's a 7-minute video that shows you the most spectacular. What else do you want? It's all in the title and it's exactly what you want. And I watched all 7 minutes, went by in a flash, and I was like, gosh, insane rides this year, Yeah,
that's cool. I'm going to check that out. I'm psyched on that.
They actually numbered them. They started with the 23rd most spectacular and ended with the first most spectacular. So it was kind of interesting to see it get down to that top 5. And they're all
number 1. Can I guess number 1?
Yeah, you can actually.
I think number one is probably Nathan Florence at the left in Ireland.
It's Nathan
The
Florence
right.
at
It's the
the
right.
right.
Okay, yeah. I knew it was one of those. I knew it when you rolled your eyes, and I knew it was okay. It's the right.
Well, number two, so the top 10, honestly, are all interchangeable
Yeah.
and up for debate. But the number two is Kainehi Hunt,
Oh,
this wave at backdoor that he just got a couple of weeks ago.
yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that could have been number one, like you could have definitely argued for either of those. What's really interesting here is in the 7 minutes of A plus clips, I only counted one CT surfer,
Really?
and it was John Florence at Haleiwa. So obviously there's
During an
license.
event?
No.
Oh.
So there's licensing issues, of course, with using the WSL's footage. So maybe that's why they didn't show Caleb Robson's 10 from Portugal. Um, but to be honest, I don't think that Caleb Robson's 10 would have fit the 23 best. When you look at the other 23 waves that they showed, those are better waves. The other
Plus,
the other constraint with the WSL is they're running in predetermined swell or predetermined contest windows, so they're not necessarily chasing the best waves around the planet like Nathan Florence is and was.
the
But
WSL think they're kidding. I mean, they would be stoked if there was some footage of the WSL and their stabs 23 best waves. I mean, what are they going to do? Sue Stab? Like what?
right,
You know what I
I mean
mean?
they could
They
send a cease
they
and desist.
wish they could be in that.
It, these are the kind of missteps that they've made in the past, though. You know what I mean? And now they don't have a CEO, maybe, who would
That would
make
be
the
the
same
greatest
misstep.
thing ever if they sued for using content that you don't have license over.
Well, at any rate, the one of the waves that they showed in there, I don't know where it ranked, but I I mean, it blew my mind when I saw it last week on Instagram pop up. It was during that New Jersey swell.
Yeah.
Um, Robbie Goodwin got this wave. Young, maybe 20-year-old regular footer from I think Maine or Maryland. Robbie Goodwin got this
You
right.
sound like me, either Maine or Maryland, maybe
Start,
Mississippi.
it's in the Northeast, starts with an M. I know that. Um, but anyways,
Maryland's not the Northeast.
it's not.
I mean, I think it's the Central East.
Shows how much we know.
Is there such a thing as the Central East? I don't know.
I don't know. There is, but
Virginia.
point is Robbie Goodwin's wave at New Jersey. Nobody knows the kid's name. He got I mean, the wave of that run of swell, I feel. Free fall, knife, it barely caught at the bottom, navigated this insane barrel, got blown out. So I was glad to see that in the mix for stab too.
That is cool. And gosh, there's just been lately, seems like the last month, there's just been so much incredible surf content.
Totally. So anyways, thanks to treeswax.com for bringing us our must-see moment this week.
By the way, I just want to mention something sort of sad, but a surfer on Maui died via shark attack a couple of days ago. I think his name was Jason Carter. He was like a 43. He was one of us. He was like you and me, just going out, in between work sessions. And sadly,
do you know what spot?
I want to say like down by the Hana side, like, not up by Lahaina or anything like that. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure he's on the other side of the island.
Sad.
Yeah, real bummer. Don't mean to bring the show down, but I wanted to at least acknowledge his existence and rest in power type thing.
Yeah. Very good.
Did not know him, but all right. Well, look, David, we've said a lot. We've had a busy show here, an afternoon show for us, an evening show. It's getting close to my bedtime, David. Okay, look, until next time, adios and aloha.